Okay, let's talk about exercise number 2. Go to the extremes. As a landscape or nature photographer, we're out shooting maybe all day, f8, f11. In this exercise, I want you to go to the extreme and use a very shallow depth of field. That means an f-stop of f2.8 or f4. I want you to shoot wide open. The nice part about this is it allows you to separate the subject from its environment. Perhaps it's a bird up in a tree. By shooting wide open with a shallow depth of field, we separate the bird from the noisy limbs in the background. Or it's a coyote in the meadow, or a great grizzly bear out in the stream. We already know what a stream looks like. Having a large depth of field doesn't really help us in this sense. We really want to be able to see that grizzly bear and make him pop. This works well. This exercise works very well with single subject images, images with a powerful subject, such as a grizzly bear in the stream. Now, go the other way. What I'd like you to shoot is something like f16 and f22. What you'll find is that the fundamental thing that you're trying to convey has implicitly changed when you shoot with an f-stop of f16 or f22, when you've added a large amount of depth of field. You often find yourself reaching in your bag for your wider lens as you start to consider why you want a greater depth of field. Let's take the bear in the stream. If we start to use a wider depth of field, what you'll find is that the subject is no longer just the one bear. Maybe you're trying to convey the feeding frenzy of 3, 4, 5 bears in the stream. The fundamental nature of your image will change, and you often end up going for either a wider zoom or a wider angle lens in your composition. By increasing your depth of field, you'll think about other elements that you want to include into your image. Like a painter thinking about what elements he or she wants to put on the canvas. By going to f16 or f22, one of the great side effects of this exercise is you'll start to think about what are the other elements that would really make this image pop. What are the other elements that I want to add to this image? So that's it. That's exercise number 2. Go to the extremes. Shoot wide open, shoot f22. You're going to learn a lot about what it is you're shooting and why you're shooting it. Now under rule of thumb number 2, what I call taking a safety shot. You've just arrived at a Princeton photo workshop, and as you're driving in, you've seen 5 or 6 shots you're already excited about taking. If the instructor would just stop talking. The time is ticking. Okay, go ahead. When you break from your group session, go take your shot. But before you walk off, take your safety shot. And what I mean by that is zoom out about 15%, take the exact same image, but zoom out about 15%. This will give you margins around the edges of your images. This does 2 things. First, when you come back from a trip or from a photo workshop, you know you have an extra copy of the image already on the card. The second thing is that if you need to do some adjustments in post-production, you have a very flexible image. So for example, maybe the horizon line was just a little bit off and you had to adjust the horizon line. When you crop it, maybe you cut off a bear in the corner or the flock of birds flying in from the top right, and you really didn't want to do that. By giving yourself a safety shot with an extra 15% margin, you can make those corrections in post-production without losing the key elements that you want to keep in your image. If I'm shooting buildings, for example, I'll oftentimes zoom out 25 or 30% because as you get up to closer to the building, you get that distortion where the building looks like it's leaning. When you're trying to fix that distortion in post, you end up losing a lot of the foreground. So with buildings, you may actually zoom out and take a safety shot that's maybe 25 or 33% smaller, so you don't lose the important elements in your image. This rule is even more powerful when you travel a long distance or take a once-in-a-lifetime journey to Morocco perhaps, or Alaska, Vietnam, the Galapagos Islands, wherever. Here's the added benefit. When you have that extra shot, you're going to sleep better on your expedition. You're going to know that you have a backup copy and you have a copy that you can edit in post in case you got something just a little bit off when you were composing in camera. So that's my second rule of thumb. Before you leave, zoom out a little bit, take your safety shot, sleep well. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for your time, and we look forward to seeing you at another Princeton Photo Workshops. Stay healthy and keep shooting.